Imagine it's 2036, you wake up to the sound of your alarm just like you have thousands of times before. Your hand reaches for your phone before your eyes are fully open. A few notifications, a few emails, the same headlines, the same routine. You get out of bed, walk into the bathroom, and look at yourself in the mirror. At first, everything feels normal. Then, without warning, a single thought appears. This isn't where I thought I'd be. You don't panic. You don't cry. You simply stand there, staring at your reflection, wondering how 10 years disappeared so quietly. The dreams you once talked about, the places you wanted to visit, the business you wanted to build, the person you wanted to become. They're all still waiting, exactly where you left them. And one question echoes louder than anything else. What if I had started 10 years ago? This is Revlytic, where ideas meet the road. There's something almost invisible about the way time changes our lives. We imagine that the biggest moments will define our future. A promotion, a wedding, a graduation, a breakthrough. But if you look closely, life is rarely shaped by dramatic events. It's shaped by ordinary Tuesdays, by the mornings when you choose to hit snooze, by the evenings when you tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, by the conversations you avoid because they feel uncomfortable. We expect life to change in giant leaps, but it usually changes in tiny steps that are impossible to notice while they're happening. That's why regret is so dangerous. It doesn't arrive all at once. It grows quietly, one postponed decision at a time. Think about the version of yourself from 10 years ago. They probably believed that by now, life would look different. They imagined you'd be more confident, more successful, healthier, calmer, maybe even happier. They weren't expecting perfection. They were expecting movement. They believed that time alone would create progress. But time has never changed anyone. Decisions do, habits do, courage does. Time simply reveals the direction you've been walking all along. Now imagine two people standing at exactly the same starting line. They're the same age. They have similar opportunities, similar fears, and similar dreams. Neither one feels ready. Neither one knows exactly what they're doing. The first person decides to wait. They tell themselves they'll start when life becomes less busy, when they have more money, more confidence, or a little more experience. Every delay feels reasonable. Every excuse sounds logical. After all, what's one more week? What's one more month? But weeks quietly become years. The second person is just as uncertain, but they make one different choice. They begin anyway. They read one chapter, they take one walk, they send one email, they have one difficult conversation. None of those actions look impressive on their own. In fact, if you watch them day by day, you'd barely notice a difference. But life isn't measured day by day. It's measured year by year. 5 years later, the gap between those two people is impossible to ignore. Not because one was more talented, but because one allowed fear to decide, while the other allowed action to lead. The future isn't created by one extraordinary moment. It's built through thousands of ordinary moments that most people overlook. The most powerful voice you'll ever hear isn't your parents, your teachers, your friends, or even your critics. It's the quiet voice inside your own mind. Every day, it tells you a story about who you are. Maybe it says you're not ready. Maybe it says you're too late. Maybe it reminds you of every mistake you've ever made and quietly convinces you that this time won't be any different. The strange thing is, we rarely question that voice. We treat it like truth. But what if it isn't? What if the life you've imagined for yourself isn't impossible? What if it's simply waiting for a different story? Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding that your past is no longer the author of your future. Imagine replacing I can't with I'll learn, replacing maybe one day with today. The world around you wouldn't change overnight, but something far more important would. The way you see yourself would begin to shift, and once that happens, your decisions begin to change, your habits begin to change, eventually your entire life begins to follow. Let's go back to that mirror in 2036. You're still standing there, still looking at the person you've become. But suddenly something changes. The alarm goes off again. You open your eyes. It's not 2036, it's today. The future you are mourning hasn't happened yet. The regret you imagine doesn't exist. Not because you're lucky, because you still have time. This moment, right now, is the oldest you've ever been, but it's also the youngest you'll ever be again. The decisions you make after this drive will quietly shape the life you'll be living years from now. You don't need to reinvent yourself before sunrise. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know exactly where the road leads. You only need to stop waiting for a version of yourself that magically appears one day. That person is built one decision, one habit, one uncomfortable step at a time. One day you'll remember an ordinary drive. Not because anything extraordinary happened, but because it was the moment you finally stopped waiting. The moment you realized that your future wasn't decided by luck, talent, or perfect timing. It was decided by what you chose to do next. Maybe years from now, you'll look back at today and smile. Not because today changed everything, but because today was the day everything quietly began. Thank you for taking this journey with Revlytic. Until the next road, drive safe, keep thinking, and remember, the future isn't waiting for you, it's being created by you.